you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I believe we're ready. Mr. McDowell, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Alan McDowell, Memory Programs, LLC, Morgan Acres.
Oh, and just a gentle reminder, we're trying to keep to the 5-minute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Deb Conklin, and thank you, Marty, for all your work since you've been here. I appreciate everything you've done. I'm not going to talk about this today, but this is what I had up last night, and I call it hammering down, whereas I make a phone call, or first I do an email and give an office time, and then make a call, follow up, and I get everything I want without any exception. And so, again, another example is coming up to council and asking for something and getting exactly what I want. And so I call that hammering down, and that's what I did last night. And the dialectical receipt filer is a very effective product. I do have some concerns about everybody in the jail running around with it and the complications it could cause, so I'm not putting it out there yet. As for the veteran video that I talked about either last month or the month before, it's blocked by HIPAA protections. I got the video, but it's blocked. And then I talked to an international interpreter and former VA social worker, and he explained the importance of treating an individual calmly and professionally, and not getting aggravated when an individual is aggravated. So you don't escalate when the other individual escalates. And so I'll probably never get the video of the individual who's now in federal prison for threatening the VA so much. But I am going to start using the Federal Trade Commission because of former conflicts of interest that have almost cost my life. And I'm going to start, briefing Jacqueline on all the information of everything that goes back to days before AutoZen, because this is a very deadly battlefield taking on the medical industry, from Freeman to here, even in Iraq, in Iran, in Palestine, in the war zone. People get injected, they get drugged, they get tortured, and a lot of civil liberties are lost. And the reason we use the Federal Trade Commission is because we're talking about products and evaluation. And so there is business going on with those products, and an individual needs to be evaluated properly, and there are financial gains and interest. And if I'm a business, I need protections by the federal government. And especially now the Department of Justice is not going to examine police departments. It's important that when I bring in a product that the Federal Trade Commission look over everything, because it's an unfair, there's unfair competition, there's monopoly, there's places like FBH that take over territory. And instead of using Snapshot to 911 like I talked about, I'm planning on online procedures for uploading files to online drives, and then have individuals code protect only for the officers, the courts, and the hospitals, because as Chief Meidel says, that would be too complicated for the police department to be organizing through that Snapshot to 911 services that are going to come through based on that last levy. And I talked yesterday with Community Outreach Coordinator Officer Bartlett about stage fright video and misinterpretation of an illness, because individuals don't normally talk to officers, and they have preconceived notions about officers, and every officer is different. And so I showed him my diagrams and the explanation and the importance of having something on paper or having something down in a diagram or an application before you talk to an individual. It calms down the situation and you get to the point. And then I also talked about if an individual is not evaluated properly by the officer has the right to detain any individual. Now, there are a lot of psychiatrists who only go off the information that the officer states in order to diagnose an individual, and then they chemically induce that individual with an iatrogenic disease. By giving an individual schizophrenic medication, you can cause schizophrenia. And so it's important that police officers know that their reports are actually contributing to a diagnosis, and a lot of the time the psychiatrists don't listen to anything but what the officer states. So again, it's important for an individual to have civil liberties and have the proper diagrams to get to the point and explain very complicated situations in either domestic violence or family disputes where finances might be involved or anything else. And so that's all I have to talk about tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time.
You had 10 seconds left. Marianne Torres.